The winning blueprint presents.
Welcome. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me on this Monday afternoon, which means we just had our plate full of football from the weekend, and the action was hot and heavy, and it was some good football over the weekend. A lot of close matchups, a lot of games went down to the wire, and not a lot of blowouts per se, not a lot of teams running away with victories like we had a week ago, but there weren't any nail biters that really went down to the wire where teams had the ball and there was some late game drama. A lot of these games were close, but teams were finding ways to close it out and not really be scared toward the end of the game. And so while we had a lot of competitive football, there was really no late game drama to speak of this weekend. A lot of close ball games though, but not the late game drama that we've come to know and love in the National Football League. A lot of teams are finding ways to close out games, and even if you get the football back with the chance to tie or take the lead, it's almost impossible for you to accomplish that feat with the amount of time, the amount of yardage that you need to cover. And that's what we had in a lot of games. And you saw it all over the National Football League, whether it was in Dallas against the Falcons, the Redskins against the Panthers, the Giants. In some instances, teams didn't even get the chance to get the football back. I mean, you saw teams get that last first down that they needed to run the clock out. So it was a lot of instances where teams were close. The score indicates that it was a one-score game, but they never got that chance to really tie the football game up or take the lead in some games. And so it was some good football, though, nonetheless. I had a great weekend, so it's not much to complain about on my end. The only thing that really made this weekend sort of bittersweet was the fact that the Redskins lost. I mean, we had an opportunity to climb back into the NFC East. The Giants went down. The Cowboys went down. The Eagles are playing tonight against the New Orleans Saints. We'll talk about that game a little bit later. And so we had a chance to climb back into the divisional race, and we had a chance to make this season relevant. Instead, we went home against the Panthers. We laid an egg, and we lost to a 1-6 football team. And so now our season is really in doubt. There's not really much margin for error now. You're at the point now where your season is all but done, because if you're the Redskins, in order to really make a thing of it, to really make a go of it, you would have to run off 6 out of your last 7. And that's it. That I'm here to tell you that is impossible for the Redskins to do. Impossible. Not going to happen, because the Redskins just aren't a good football team. They're not good enough to beat 6 out of 17. They're not good enough to win 6 out of the 7 games remaining left on their schedule. Not when you're talking about the likes of the Ravens, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Giants, and some of these teams we have to play them twice. The Eagles twice, the Cowboys twice, the Ravens. Hell, I'm even afraid of playing the Browns at this point. And they're looming later on in the schedule. And they're playing solid football right now, even though their record indicates that they're a bad team just like the Redskins. I'm scared of them at this point. And so it's going to be a tough remaining slate for the Redskins. And it's going to just be a tough rest of the season, because knowing the fact that your season is probably all but over. Mike Shanahan said it. A lot of people don't agree with it, but it's the truth. It's reality. It's what the Redskins have done. They made their bed. Now they have to lie in. But we move on. This isn't a Redskins program. This is an NFL program. And so let's talk about all the games that happened over the weekend as we go slate skating and take a look at the weekend that was.
The
The weekend that was. We're slate skating, we're slate skating, we're slate skating, we're slate skating.
So our first stop on the weekend that was lands us in Cleveland, where the Cleveland Browns were hosting division rival Baltimore Ravens. This was some family business that the Ravens had to clean up. They have already played the Browns once this season, and so they were looking for the season sweep for about the fourth or fifth season in a row. This is a matchup that the Ravens routinely dominate, and it's one that the Browns are looking to end. They're looking to end the dominance of the Ravens over them, and they need just one victory to do that. Sometimes all you need to do is know that you can beat a team. Just know that you can win a game against another opponent. It's a mental thing. And right now, the Browns mentally don't feel like they can beat the Baltimore Ravens. Of course, they're going to say everything that it takes to make them feel confident. We can beat them. We can beat anyone. Anyone can be beaten on any given day. Yes, that is the case. However, you haven't beat the Ravens probably in the last 3, maybe 4 seasons. And so it's starting to become a mental block now. It's starting to become something that you know going into the game. If we don't play perfect football, we won't beat the Ravens. And the Ravens jumped out on top of the Cleveland Browns in this one. And that's what you're supposed to do. When you're a good football team, the easiest way to win a game against a bad football team is to jump out on that team early on and create doubt. If you jump on a team 14-0 like that in an instant, now they're starting to think, do we actually have a chance in this game? Are we actually good enough to compete with this team? And that's what the Ravens did. They made that doubt start to creep in with the Browns. But like I said on the preview for this game, these aren't your same Browns. Even though the record says these are your same Cleveland Browns, this isn't the same Browns team. They're getting better. And mentally, they're starting to get tougher. Even though they were down 14-0 in this game, and it was looking bleak. The outlook for this game did not look pretty. There was no light at the end of the tunnel after the Ravens took a 14-0 lead in this game, because the Ravens went up and down the field. Joe Flacco was being efficient. Ray Rice was running the football. They were mixing in a little bit of Bernard Pierce. They were spreading the football around, and they were scoring touchdowns when they got in the red zone. So you were thinking this is something that could continue for the rest of the game. But the Browns settled down after really getting gashed on the ground in the first half. They settled down. They weren't allowing Ray Rice and Bernard Pierce to run the football in the second half. They started to take control of this game defensively. And they scored 15 unanswered points to take the lead in this football game at 15-14. They were hanging around. Their biggest problem was they could not find the end zone. There's only so many times you can kick a field goal and get away with it. Always remember, in this league, field goals don't win games, touchdowns do. And the Ravens scored touchdowns in this game. They scored 3 of them. The Browns, none. The Browns elected to kick 5 field goals. The Ravens decided to score 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns beat 5 field goals every time. Every single time. And so what this actually says to me is that the Browns are getting better. But watching this game, it was so disappointing if you were a Browns fan, because Brandon Weeden was missing opportunities to make plays in this game. And several times he had guys wide open, and he either didn't make the proper read, he took too long to make the right read or decision, or he just altogether didn't make a good throw after making the right read. And so he missed opportunities in this game to either score touchdowns, to make a big play to set up an opportunity to score a touchdown, or he just flat out missed the opportunity altogether. And his head coach, Pat Shurmur, let him have it on the sidelines a couple of times. And it was obvious that he was missing guys wide open. And a lot of times, coaches don't even see guys running free because they're concentrating on different elements of the game. You know, what's going on in the trenches for protection. What is my quarterback looking at? These were some obvious misses. I mean, Rich Gannon was doing the game for CBS, and he was perturbed at the fact that Brandon Weeden was just missing wide open receivers left and right. And it cost him in this football game. But he's a rookie. These things happen. They got to go to the film room do some studying. He's got to know that he missed these open receivers. He missed these opportunities, and he's got to come back and be a better quarterback because of it. The next time that these opportunities present themselves, he's got to be ready to take advantage of it. He wasn't in this game. The Ravens took advantage of the fact that he wasn't ready to take advantage of those open receivers, and they got the job done. 25-15 was the final score in this game. The Ravens, they're a shaky team right now. Although they won this game and they won it by 10, and it seems like it was a comfortable victory, this game was never comfortable, maybe up until the last 4, maybe 5 minutes of this ball game, where they actually took that 10-point lead. The Ravens struggled in this game. After jumping out on top of the Browns 14-0, they should have been able to cruise to a victory. But that's not where the Ravens are as a football team right now. They got a lot of things to iron out. And this thing for the Ravens, although they're 6-2 on the season, this thing could really turn ugly for the Ravens if they don't find a way to get this thing under control, because you're not going to play the Cleveland Browns every week. You know, when you play the Texans, what happens? When you play a team like the Texans that plays really good defense, that's not going to turn the football over, that's going to score points when they get in the red zone and not settle for 5 field goals, what are you going to do when you come up against a team that can score and play defense? You better hope that the outcome isn't the same as it was when you played the Texans in Houston 2 weeks ago. Because if it is, you won't go very far as a football team. So, although you got this win, a lot of questions still need to be answered if you're the Ravens. But nonetheless, it's always easier to answer questions and correct mistakes when you're winning football games. And that's what the Ravens did. 25-15 over the Cleveland Browns, taking their record to 6-2 on the season, dropping the Cleveland Browns to 2-7 on the season. Moving right along down the slate of games, we find ourselves next at Lambeau Field, where the Green Bay Packers took on the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals were on the road traveling to Green Bay in a game that they really didn't have a chance to win, in my estimation. I just thought that with their performance a week ago and what they've been doing over the last 4 weeks, 4 straight losses after starting the season 4-0, they weren't going to waltz into Lambeau Field, into Green Bay, and get a victory. The Green Bay Packers have been playing hot football of late, and they're starting to right the ship. Aaron Rodgers is playing MVP-like football, and they're getting after teams' quarterback, the Packers. And the one thing that the Cardinals can't do is protect their quarterback. And in this football game, the Cardinals performed a lot better than I thought they were going to. I'll give them credit. They scored 17 points in this game, and they hung around a lot longer than I thought they would. I mean, at one point in this game, the score was 24-17. The Packers were clinging to a 7-point lead. The Cardinals scratched and clawed and got themselves back in this football game after trailing 24-10. And I thought the Packers were going to run away with this one because, again, the Cardinals are very deficient on offense, especially on that offensive line. So that stops them from being able to do a lot of things like run the football, like just have a regular passing attack. When you can't protect, when you can't have a functional offensive line, that really hinders what you can do on offense. But they were able to protect for the most part. And John Skelton did a good job of dealing with the pass rush. He knew he was going to get hit. He knew the rush was going to be coming. And he did his best to try to, ignore the rush and push the ball down the field. It worked at some times and it didn't work at other times. They turned the football over, which is what the Cardinals have been doing of late on this 5-game losing streak. They turned the football over. And again, you can't turn the football over if you want to win in the National Football League, especially when you're on the road. You have to be able to take care of the football and give yourself a chance. They turned it over several times in this game, and they weren't able to stop the Packers when they needed to get a stop. And really, if the Packers didn't have mistakes in this game, and they missed a field goal early on, and they didn't score when they were in the red zone a couple of times, if not for the Packers' shortcomings early in this football game, this probably would have been a blowout. But the Packers didn't take advantage of opportunities that they had early on in the game. Randall Cobb got a good return, and they had prime field position to really do some damage early in this game, and they didn't do anything with it. And so it left the Cardinals with an opportunity to actually do something in this game, but the Cardinals weren't able to. I mean, they dropped passes in this football game, a lot of passes. They had penalties in this game that negated some plays for them, and they turned the football over. And all that amounts to a 31-17 defeat at the hands of the Packers. So that's the 5th loss in a row for the Arizona Cardinals as they dropped this one 31-17. Now they're 4-5 on the season. After starting 4-0, they cannot stop the bleeding in Arizona. And it doesn't look like there's any help in sight. I don't see them. I don't see them riding this ship anytime soon, because the help that they need isn't coming until the offseason. You can't address the needs that they need help with until you get to the offseason. These things aren't going to correct themselves during the season, and so this Cardinals team is in trouble. Meanwhile, the Packers, who are playing really good football of late, making that push to try to keep within arm's reach of the Bears, are now 6-3 on the season. But the Bears are just playing really hot football right now, and they won't lose. They refuse to lose a football game, and so all the Packers can do is just keep winning and hope that someone can clip the Bears for them until they get to the Bears themselves, which they have one more matchup with the Bears later on in the season at Soldier Field. But the Packers get it done at home against the Cardinals 31-17, moving them to 6-3 on the season, dropping the Arizona Cardinals to 4-5. Moving right along, the next game on the docket was the sole survivor pick for the Lab Room for this week in the Pick'em Weekly, which was the Buffalo Bills traveling to the Houston Texans. I thought the Bills did not stand a shot in this game because the Bills are not a good football team. The Texans are one of the best teams in the AFC, if not the best team in the AFC. Their record indicates that they're the best team in the AFC, and they play like it, especially when they're at home. And the Bills were coming off a bye, so were the Texans. So that kind of negated any advantage that the Bills might have had by coming off of a bye. The Texans were coming off a bye as well. So they were fully rested, ready to go, had 2 weeks to game plan for this Buffalo Bills team. And as we all know, if you stop the run, you stop the Bills. Well, the Bills said, you know what, we're going to stop the run for you. They didn't run the football in this game. C.J. Spiller and Fred Jackson each had 6 carries apiece in this game, and that was it. They took to the air, and I think what they did was they took a look at that Green Bay Packers film. And they said the Packers attacked the Houston Texans through the air. And so that's what we're going to mimic. We're going to try to attack the Texans through the air and see if we can be successful that way. Because running the football isn't going to get it done against this Houston Texans team. They're just going to stop the run, or you're just going to find yourself bogging down on drives. The easiest way to move the football in the National Football League is through the air. And so they took to the air. And they actually had success with it. If you watch this game, they moved the ball. Their problem was they could not finish drives. Again, field goals don't win games. Touchdowns do. The Bills scored 9 points in this game. If you do your math correctly, that's 3 field goals. No touchdowns. None. You can't just kick field goals in this league and think you're going to win. You won't win many games that way. The Texans are a very efficient and explosive offense. So if you're just going to kick field goals, you're probably going to lose the football game. And that's what happened. And I expected the Bills to not be able to keep pace with the Texans. I actually expected the Texans to score more points. But the Bills actually played a sound game. And like I said, they weren't that bad on offense like I expected them to be. They controlled some of the game on offense. They just couldn't score points. And so when the Texans got the football, they were able, to move the football down the field. They didn't have to do too much because the Bills never really threatened them in this football game. They jumped on the Bills early, and they just kind of coasted. And you'll see the Texans do that from time to time. They've done it several times this year. Early in the season, they did it against Miami. They did it against Jacksonville, where they just get an early lead, and then they just coast because they know that that team that they're playing against isn't a threat to score points. And so they got on top of the Buffalo Bills in this game, and then they just coasted to a 21-9 victory. Arian Foster went over 100 yards. Andre Johnson had over 100 yards receiving. It was another Houston Texans textbook win. Run the football, go play action fake off of that run, and go up top to Owen Daniels and Andre Johnson. It's a hard formula to stop, especially when you know it's coming. You still can't stop it. It's the Houston Texans way. They get it done again, and now they're 7-1 on the season. Meanwhile, the Buffalo Bills drop to 3-6 on the season after being 3-3. They've dropped 3 straight, and this Bills team is not a good football team. And so it's not a surprise that they've dropped 3 straight, but it's got to be disappointing if you're the Bills brass because you spent a lot of money on this defense in the offseason. You felt like, okay, we've already spent money on the offense. Now we went out and spent a boatload of money on the defense. We should be ready to go. We should be ready to contend. What this says, if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, and this is really what goes around the league, what goes on around the league is you can't buy a championship. There's no way to replace continuity and guys being around each other and knowing each other's tendencies. You can't replace that. The teams that win in this league are teams that have been together for multiple years. And so maybe the money that the Bills spent ultimately won't turn out to be wasted money, but it won't pay dividends this year. Maybe over time they'll grow together as a team. What you have to ask yourself if you're a Buffalo Bills fan is Ryan Fitzpatrick the quarterback for the future? That's the number one question you need to address. Hard to really know the answer to that right now, but there's a lot of evaluating that will go on for the remainder of this season. And he's got a lot of work to do to convince Chan Gailey and the rest of that Buffalo Bills coaching staff and the brass in the front office that, hey, you paid me the money for a reason. I am the man for the job. He's going to have to do that. He's going to have to show a lot of people that he can get it done, or else they'll be looking elsewhere, probably in the draft, for a quarterback to come head the Buffalo Bills franchise for the next 5, 6, 7, 10 years to come. Of the games on the slate for this weekend, this was one of my top 3 that I must watch. This was a must-see game for me, which saw the Miami Dolphins traveling to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. 2 rookie quarterbacks, 2 members of the starting 5, squaring off against each other in a matchup that was going to see who was going to be able to elevate their team to 2 games over 500 at the midpoint of the season. Amazing that these 2 ball clubs, after getting rookie quarterbacks and rookie head coaches, were going to be able to say one of them was going to be 2 games over 500. What an amazing job that both of these quarterbacks, both of these coaches, both of these teams have done to this point. So this was going to be a very intriguing matchup for me. I couldn't wait to watch it, and I was very let me say this before I get into this game. I was very proud of myself. I actually picked this score perfectly. I said coming into this game that it was going to be 23-20, and I said it was going to be a Colts victory, and I picked it to a T. I don't do that very often. I've come close many a times, but it's very rare that I actually pick the actual score. But you knew this was going to be that type of game where it came down to the end. Both of these teams play it close to the vest in terms of scores, and they don't run away from teams. Neither one of these teams has had a blowout victory this season, with the exception of the Dolphins a week ago against the Jets, where they just took it to the Jets from the start to the finish of that football game. But for the most part, these teams win close matchups. They don't do a lot on offense, especially the Dolphins. The Colts, they can surprise you on offense, as they did in this game. They can rev it up. Andrew Luck is starting to take command of this offense. And you're seeing the maturation of Andrew Luck every single week. He's starting to do more and more and more. And they're becoming a more and more dangerous team. Andrew Luck passed for 433 yards, a rookie record in this game. He's starting to really smell himself. And I think it's going to be trouble for the rest of the league if they allow Andrew Luck to continue to build confidence with his receiving corps. Because look, if I'm playing the Indianapolis Colts, I come into the game, I take away Reggie Wayne. I say, look, Reggie Wayne is your leading receiver. He's one of the top receivers in the NFL right now. You're going to have to find someone else to throw the football to. You better spread it around to your tight ends. Go throw it to T.Y. Hilton. Go throw it to Brazil and go throw it to Donnie Avery. Go find other guys to beat me with. You're not going to throw it to Reggie Wayne. Well, in this game, that's exactly what he did. He threw it to Donnie Avery. He threw it to T.Y. Hilton. Both of these guys had over 100 yards receiving in this game. And so that's the dangerous part. That's the scary part of about what's going on right now in Indianapolis. Is that he's realizing that I can spread the ball around. I don't just have to throw it to Reggie Wayne 18 times. I can throw it to other guys and still beat you. And if he starts doing that, if he starts spreading the wealth, this league is going to be in trouble. And this was a fun game to watch. This was a quarterback duel. These two quarterbacks, these two rookie quarterbacks were going head to head, and they were dueling. And they were going back and forth, and they were throwing punches and counter punches, and it was just fun to watch. They didn't want to be outdone by the other rookie quarterback, but someone had to lose in this football game. And Ryan Tannehill, he held his own. He had a very solid football game. He did nothing wrong in this game. He did nothing but put his team in a position to win the football game. His defense let him down. There were opportunities in this game for the Miami Dolphins defense to step up, and they just didn't do it. And for a defense that's been really solid all season long to be shredded to the tune of 433 passing yards, inexcusable when your quarterback goes out and gives you every opportunity to win the football game. And so it was disheartening if you were a Dolphins fan to see guys like T.Y. Hilton and Donnie Avery go up and make plays on you, because that's not what they do normally. They're not guys that's going to leap up in double coverage and come down with a 36-yard touchdown pass, but that's what T.Y. Hilton did on a play in this game. You know, Donnie Avery was streaking wide open a couple of times in the Dolphins secondary, and Andrew Luck made some beautiful throws. This is what you get when you can't contain a rookie quarterback that's starting to build confidence week in and week out. It's building. You can start to see it transfer onto the field. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. But if you're the Dolphins, that play that he threw up to T.Y. Hilton in the end zone, that needs to be a pick. That should have been picked off by Sean Smith, the Dolphins' best corner, and arguably one of the better corners in the National Football League. He sags off of Reggie Wayne in zone coverage because Reggie Wayne runs a crossing route. So Sean Smith drops back, and he's right in the line of sight of the play. He sees everything that's going on. He sees Andrew Luck loading up to throw it to T.Y. Hilton in the end zone. He has the perfect angle to cut it off and pick it off. He takes a bad angle on the football, falls behind the play mysteriously. I don't know how he managed to not get his footwork together to make a play on the ball. He goes behind the football. T.Y. Hilton comes in front of him, catches the ball, 36-yard touchdown. And ultimately, that play kind of changed the game. Because if they get a stop there, the Dolphins were up in this game at that point, 17-13. You get a stop there, I don't know if the Colts are able to score a touchdown or not. I'm not saying that you win the game, but it's that much harder for the Colts to overcome, that deficit. The game was starting to get in its later stages. And so you get a stop there, you just don't know what could have happened. But instead, you allow that completion to happen. The Colts take that 20-17 lead. You ultimately tie it up at 20, but they go and get that 23-20 victory at home in a hostile environment. And all of a sudden, the Indianapolis Colts are a tough team to beat at home. They haven't lost all season at home. And all of a sudden now, they're 5-3 on the season. And they're a dangerous team. And the Dolphins played a whale of a game again. Defense just didn't step up and make the plays that were there to be made. A couple of passes were batted up in the air. And they had a chance to make Andrew Luck pay for a few errant throws, and they didn't do it. They just didn't do it. A couple of guys had balls hit them right in the hands. They didn't catch them. It happens. But when things like that happen and you don't make the play, you pay for it. And that's what happened in this game. The Colts take this one 23-20, elevating their record to 5-3 on the season. And don't look now, but the Indianapolis Colts, if the playoffs started today, would be in the playoffs as a wild card seed. Unbelievable. But it's a lot of game left to be played in this season. And so you can't just go off of that. But it's amazing to think that this Colts team, who was 2-14 a year ago, the laughing stock of the league, is now 5-3 after one season. And we're not even talking a full season. We're talking about 8 games, a half of a season, with Andrew Luck at the helm. Meanwhile, the Dolphins dropped to 4-4 in the season. They have nothing to hang their heads about. They played a solid football game. Ryan Tannehill showed up, gave them an opportunity to win. I thought Reggie Bush was special in this game. That one touchdown run he had, you have to see it to believe it. Reggie Bush has agility in this league like no other. I mean, the way he stops on a dime and changes direction is illegal. He should be arrested for the type of moves that he does on the football field. But it wasn't enough in this game. Dolphins dropped to 4-4 in the season. But they're a dangerous team. They have confidence now. They feel like they can win every single game. If you're the Patriots, you should be very worried about this Miami Dolphins team because they're not afraid. They don't care who you are. They don't care where they have to go to get a victory. They think they can win every single game. They're a scary group now. They're a scary bunch. And if you're the Patriots, that's who you're going to have to contend with in this division. So we move on. Our next tilt sees the Denver Broncos traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. The Bengals were coming off of a bye week, and they were at home, and they were starving for a victory. The only problem was they were coming up against a Denver Broncos team that's hot right now. Peyton Manning is playing lights-out football. He's been steamrolling defenses, and I felt bad for this Cincinnati Bengals team because they need a win badly, and they were looking to get one, but you just had the wrong team coming into your building. Had this been, I would venture to say, any other team in the AFC, with the exception of maybe the Steelers and the Patriots, you probably got a legitimate shot. Oh, yeah, and let's toss in the Ravens because you have a phobia of beating the Ravens. So if this was any other team than the Steelers, the Ravens, and the New England Patriots or the Houston Texans, this is probably a win. But you pick one of the 5 teams that you probably couldn't go up against and get a W, which Denver Broncos are in that category, in that discussion of teams that are just going to be tough to deal with in the AFC. You picked that team to be the one to play coming off your bye, and that was a tough draw for you. I didn't see you being able to beat this Denver Broncos team, who's just playing really good football right now. I like what they're doing on defense. I like this young corner, Tony Carter. You know, all these weeks that Tracy Porter is missing with his illness, I don't really even know what's wrong with him, but he's missed the last 3 weeks or so. This Tony Carter guy has stepped in, and he's playing some magnificent football over there at that other corner position opposite Champ Bailey. I mean, I really like this guy. I almost like him to the point where I'm like, when Tracy Porter comes back, you stick his butt in the slot. I mean, Tony Carter is playing that good of football right now. Believe me when I tell you, he's playing good football at that corner position. And this Broncos defense is doing just enough to win games. They're not going to wow you with what they do. And they're not going to shut teams down. But what they're going to do is limit you enough to allow that Denver Broncos offense to score more points than you're going to score on offense. And they're going to win the game. And that's what happened in this game. The Broncos really had a chance to put their foot on the throats of the Cincinnati Bengals in this game. They jumped out to an early 14-3 lead. They had them on the ropes. Peyton Manning is driving the Denver Broncos down the field for another score, and he throws an interception in the end zone to Terrence Newman. And I thought that actually changed the game and left the Cincinnati Bengals in the football game. If Peyton Manning doesn't throw that pick to Terrence Newman in the end zone, if they just get a field goal on that possession, extend that lead to 17-3, I don't think the Cincinnati Bengals ever climb back into this football game. I really don't. And especially if they were to get a touchdown on that possession and go up 21-3, or the game was over. But instead, Peyton Manning forced it to the inside. Terrence Newman won the battle on the inside, picked it off. They go down and they get a touchdown to cut the lead to 14-10, and then they come right back on the next possession, and Peyton throws another interception to Terrence Newman. They go right back down and they score another touchdown or a field goal. Next thing you know, in the fourth quarter, after trailing for the majority of this game, they're winning this football game 20-17 over the Denver Broncos. But Peyton Manning would not have any of it. he put together 2 masterful drives back to back. You know, a lot of it heavy with the pass. You know, they sprinkled in a little bit of Willis McGahee later on in the game to really ice it and seal it. As that Cincinnati Bengals defense began to wear down, Willis McGahee started to get yardage on the ground, but Peyton Manning put together 2 beautiful drives back to back to score 2 touchdowns to really put this game away and put it out of reach at 31-20. Bengals tacked on a late field goal to give themselves a chance to kick an onside kick to get it to a 1-score game. They didn't recover the onside kick, and the Denver Broncos go into Cincinnati and get a win, 31-23, taking their record to 5-3 on the season, dropping the Cincinnati Bengals to 3-5 on the season. After starting the season 3-1, they've dropped 4 straight. And I told you in the preview, I don't know when they're going to get another win. It's just going to be tough because they play in a tough division, and they're one of the tenants in that division, and they still have to play the landlords in that division. They've already encountered the Ravens once. They have to play the Ravens again. Don't know if they're going to be able to beat the Ravens. They haven't played the Steelers but one time. And that game was at home, and they dropped that game. Now they have to go to Pittsburgh. As we all know, they struggle with the Steelers. They struggle with the Ravens. They struggle playing against the landlords of that division. So we're going to see if they're going to be able to turn this thing around. Because there's still time left. The AFC, just like the NFC, is wide open. You know, you win a couple games. They started out the season winning 3 straight after they lost that first game to the Ravens on their opening night on Monday Night Football. They won 3 straight after that. If they can find a way to win 3 straight again and go back over 500 at 6-5, they'll be right back in the thick of things. Now, it's easier said than done, but that just gives you an indication that they're not out of this thing yet. They have talent. You know, it was good to see A.J. Green get back into the swing of things. He went over 100 yards in this game. He caught a touchdown pass. It wasn't enough, though. Was not enough as Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos get the win 31-23. They're now 5-3, and they're now in sole possession of the lead in the AFC West. And I don't think they're going to relinquish that back to the San Diego Chargers. The Chargers can play second fiddle all they want, but I don't think that there's a better team in that division than the Denver Broncos, and I think they're going to win that division running away. Meanwhile, the Cincinnati Bengals dropped to 3-5, and they're in a world of trouble, and I can't see things getting much better for them anytime soon. Next up on the docket, on the weekend that was, sees the Detroit Lions traveling to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. This one is cut and dry, simple. If you're the Detroit Lions, you go into Jacksonville, you jump on them early, you let them know that there will be no upset in the making in this football game. You let them know that you are the superior team. They are the Jacksonville Jaguars. They need to stay in their place. They're not a good football team. And you treat them like garbage. That's what they did. They went into Jacksonville, smacked the Jaguars around, opened up a 21-0 lead in this game, and they never looked back. And that's what you do to bad teams. You go in the game thinking we need to jump on this team early. Create that doubt in their mind that they don't have a chance to win. Because bad teams, they quickly start to go, here we go again. That's the common theme with bad teams. They know that there's a chance that if they don't start the game fast or they don't give themselves a chance early, if it gets out of control, they don't have the capability to come back. And so that's what the Lions did. They went in this game, established the run, and they had a great 1-2 punch with Joy Bell and Mikael LaShore in this game. Both of these guys carried it about 13 times for well over 60 yards. So you're talking over 100 yards rushing. Matthew Stafford was sharp in this game. He wasn't his best, but he was sharp enough to get it done. Calvin Johnson, it was good to see him over 100 yards. He was comfortable in this game. Still didn't catch a touchdown pass, but they didn't need him to in this game. They jumped on him, and they never really looked back in this football game. They get the victory 31-17 over the Jacksonville Jaguars in this game, taking their record to 4-4 on the season after starting the season out. So very slowly did the Detroit Lions. They found a way to scratch and claw their way back to 500. And now they're right in the thick of things in the NFC. And that's why I say, if you're a team in either one of these conferences, if you're right around 500, you just got to stay the course. Find a way to scratch and claw, get the victories you're supposed to, and try to eke out ones that you have no business getting. If you can find a way to stack up victories, and you don't have to be a world beater. You don't have to win double-digit wins. Coming into this season, I thought you were going to have to win double-digit games to get in the playoffs in both of these conferences. That's not the case. A lot of bad football is being played. A lot of mediocre football has been played in this season up to this point. And so you're going to be able to get away with a 9-win total and get in the playoffs, probably in both of these conferences. And so if you can just find a way to stick around, hang around, you will have a shot come December. And that's what the Detroit Lions are doing right now. They're just buying themselves some time. Time is on their side right now, but if they start losing games, it'll quickly not be on their side. But right now, if they're winning football games, they still got 8 more to go. They've got time, but they have to keep winning games. So they went to Jacksonville and did exactly what they were supposed to do. They beat up on a less than stellar football team. They beat up on a mediocre team, took it to them early, got them out of the game quickly, and coasted. 31-17 is the final. Lions are now 4-4 on the season. Jacksonville Jaguars are now 1-7 on the season. Moving right along. The Chicago Bears traveled to Tennessee to take on the Titans. And this one was ugly from the start. I mean, I really thought Tennessee had a shot. I said in the preview, the one thing you cannot do if you're the Tennessee Titans is turn the football over and allow the Chicago Bears to get points off of it. That's what all the teams that the Bears have played of late have done. That's the mistake they've made, is allowing the Bears to score points on defense and really allowing them to take control of the game without having the offense have to carry the load. Make the offense beat you. Don't allow the Chicago Bears defense to beat you. Well, in this game, the Tennessee Titans allowed not only the Chicago Bears defense to beat them, but they allowed the Chicago Bears special teams to beat them. This game started out really slow for the Bears. They did nothing on offense. Neither did the Titans. But the one thing the Bears have done all season long is even when the offense isn't clicking, they found ways to score points. And in this game, the score was 0-0 midway through in the first quarter, and then they block a punt. Run it in for 5-yard touchdown. Corey Wooten recovers it, gets it in the end zone, and it opened up the floodgates. When I say it opened up the floodgates, I mean the Tennessee Titans turned it over. They proceeded, after that punt block, they proceeded to turn the football over 4 times in the first half. Leading. The score was 28-2 at the end of the first quarter. It got ugly quick. Peanut Tillman forced 4 fumbles in this game. Do you understand what I just said? He forced 4 fumbles in this game. 4 fumbles by himself at the corner position. He's not a defensive end. He's not getting fumbles by sacking the quarterback and stripping him. He's a cornerback. He's perfected that punch. That punch is a devastating right hand that you don't see coming. And when he hits it, that ball's coming out. I mean, it is a stone cold right hand. And when he lands it, it's good night. That ball is coming out. And he's perfected it. I've never seen someone be so deadly, so accurate, so efficient with that bolo punch like Charles Tillman is. It is amazing with which the accuracy that he performs that punch. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It is amazing to watch. And you have to know, as an opponent, you have to know when 33 is around. If I have the football, I'm looking for 33. Because if you don't see him coming, if you're not aware of who's in front of you, if you're just sizing him up like a regular defender, he's going to poke the ball out. And you're going to look foolish after he does it, because you'll still be left standing and the ball is floating around somewhere on the ground. And you don't have a chance of recovering it, because after he smacks it away, he's great at either tipping it to a teammate or recovering it himself. And he was a monster in this game. I mean, this Bears defense was a monster in this game. Brian Urlacher poked out a ball from Chris Johnson. Peanut Tillman poked out a ball from Chris Johnson. Brian Urlacher picked a pass off, ran it in for a touchdown. I mean, Devin Hester had a return down to about the 8-yard line, setting up a touchdown pass from Jay Cutler to Brandon Marshall. They did whatever they wanted to in this game. I mean, like I said, score was 28-2 after one quarter. I mean, this thing got ugly in a hurry. The Titans never had a shot in this football game. And the Bears right now are doing something that has been unprecedented in this league, which is just scoring points at an alarming rate in other fashions other than offense. I mean, defense, special teams, you name it, they're scoring points. And it's hard to stop when you are allowing this Chicago Bears team to tee off on you on different aspects other than offense. You can't win if you're going to allow the Bears to accumulate points on other portions of the game other than offense. I would venture to say that their defense and special teams combined to score more points than the Titans in this game, or at least led to more points being scored than the Titans scored in this entire game. And it got ugly, and the Bears took care of business on the road. They really embarrassed the Titans at home. Any momentum that the Titans were trying to build as a football team, any that was left after the crushing loss they had a week ago to the Colts at home, any little bit of momentum that they carried over from that game that might have been left, the Bears smashed it in a big way. They smashed it, destroyed it, and they handed it back to the Titans and asked them, hey, do you still want this? Nah, you can keep it. Don't worry about it. And so they just left Tennessee with Tennessee's pride, any momentum that they had, and they left Tennessee with a W. The Bears dominated this game thoroughly in every way imaginable, and they leave Tennessee with a 51-20 win. They actually just took it to them. It wasn't close. This game was ugly, and the Bears are really dominating right now. And for as much as I give them grief and give them a lot of flack for not scoring on offense, if teams are going to allow you to score on defense and special teams, there's not much I can say. I mean, I keep saying how long is this going to go on for? Well, apparently it's going to go on for as long as the Bears want it to. So, hey, more power to you. Bears elevate their record to 7-1, and they're only bested by the Atlanta Falcons in the NFC Conference, who are 8-0 right now. The Bears are 7-1, and they're playing maybe the best football of anyone, not just in the NFC, but maybe in all of football right now. I mean, they're destroying teams on the road. They're going to opposing teams' stadiums and beating them up, turning them over, turning those into points. And the Bears are really playing dominant football right now, especially on the defensive side of the football. Bears get it done 51-20. They're now 7-1. Titans, after having an opportunity to even their record up at 4-4 on the season last week, by simply just taking care of business at home against a team who hadn't won on the road in over a year and a half. After dropping a game to the Indianapolis Colts at home, now they find themselves 3 games under 500 at 3-6 instead of 1 game under 500 or possibly a game over 500. Who knows if they win that game last week, the momentum that they would have came into this game with. Who knows, they might have had a shot. But instead, again, I said it last week, I say it again, what a difference a week makes. And in this case, what a difference 2 weeks make. Because 2 weeks ago, the Titans were riding high. They were winners of 2 straight, looking to make it 3 straight. And they were trying to right the ship. Now, you go from a opportunity to get above 500 to now you're 3 games under 500 at 3-6. That's a tough one if you're the Titans. Again, anytime you get absolutely obliterated at home like that, tough to take. Tough to take.